80 Days, adventurer and award-winning filmmaker Paul G. Roberts retraces the global footsteps of Phileas Fogg, hero of Jules Verne's most famous work.
I'm here in LA on the famous Sunset Strip, the legendary road which is home to so many iconic music venues. And yes, that's a guitar behind me.
California is the place you ought to be, so they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars. The Beverly Hillbillies.
In LA, Los Angeles, swimming pools, movie stars. That's how the Beverly Hillbillies saw LA. How you see it could be many things. Tinseltown, La La Land, Disneyland, Hollywood, City of Angels, backdrop for Heat, Collateral, Michael Mann's Incarnations. However you see it, the City of Angels, Los Angeles, is one thing that every human on the culture planet has a take on. They have a space in all of their minds, imaginations. Whether it's the movies or the music or it's the Kardashians, which are all plastered all over this crazy city. One thing you can't do is ignore. From the ancient tar pits of La Brea to the movie studios of Hollywood, where the whole film business was actually created and born. From West Coast hip-hop, coming out of South Central LA, with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Rodeo Drive, Pretty Woman, shopping centers, Beverly Hills. There's so many things that we've all been indoctrinated through our lives to have an idea of what LA is, what it stands for, the shining beacon on the mount. It's made a huge impact in the cultural legacy of our collective consciousness. And now I want to talk to you about the history of Los Angeles, how it was settled, and how it got to be the crazy place that it is today. And in order to understand how Los Angeles morphed into the diverse cultural landscape that it is today, we need to take a look back into the past, into ancient history, and bring it right up to the current day. Now, when most people try and imagine the history of Los Angeles, they probably cue westerns and cowboys. But that's more courtesy of Hollywood than it is actually the history books. But cowboys and the other land grab opportunists that would head west in the late 1800s, they were actually late arrivals. In all the history of genre film, no genre is more synonymous with America than the Western, the cowboy. Westerns represent some kind of American ideal of freedom, of ruggedness, heroism, beauty, manifest destiny, and fierce independence. Sounds like Marlboro country, right? But those Hollywood movies of Westerns were seldom accurately historically correct. The history of Los Angeles begins 10,000, 20,000 years before white Europeans actually landed in California. Throughout the vast majority of human history, there was no city of Los Angeles at all. And for thousands of years, the indigenous hunter-gatherers were sort of clustered in villages on the shores and banks of the rivers. And around 1769, when the first Mexican and Spanish settlers arrived, the basin was already inhabited by many tribes of indigenous groups, all with their own languages, cultures, mythology, and ways of dressing. The Coahuila in Riverside alone had a population of 10,000 people in 50 different towns. And even back to 500 AD, the area known as Los Angeles was home to the Chumash and the theTongva peoples. And the area that became Los Angeles was formerly claimed by Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo for Spain in 1542. So the city was actually founded on September the 4th, 1781, under Spanish governor Felipe de Neve on the village of Yanga. In 781, Los Angeles was founded under a different name. Back then, it was known as the slightly hard to pronounce, the El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora de la Reina de Los Angeles de Poquecula. Pretty hard to put on a business card. And the population till 1800s was but a mere 315 people. And Los Angeles, unknown to a lot of people, actually had a very strong black influence, black people living there, more than people realize. And when the city was founded in 1781, There were a group of 44 Mexican settlers, and 26 of these were actually of African descent. Pio de Jesus Pico, who was of both African and American descent, was one of the first governors of that area that is now known as the city of Los Angeles. In fact, he served as the governor of Alto, California twice, and was even a councilman before his untimely death. By the early 1820s, there was a lot of interest in the West Coast. The Portuguese were there, the Spanish, the Mexicans, and they all vied for control of California. There are a lot of geopolitical power plays going on, and in 1821, Mexico achieved its independence from Spain. Now, it was the discovery of gold that really made people take note of California. And in 1842, California's first discovery was made at Placerita Canyon near Mission, San Fernando, prompting LA's first population boom, and people started pouring into the region in droves. And LA, with its surrounding areas, saw an explosion of growth and development. In 1850, Los Angeles was incorporated as a municipality, and California became the 30th state in the Union. Likewise, after the end of the American Civil War, many former black slaves were looking for a place to live and moved out west seeking a better life. And by 1870, its population of 315 had grown exponentially to 5,000 people. Now, the 1800s was a very, interesting time in Los Angeles, and quite a bit happened. 1865, the American Civil War had ended, and African Americans were going to Los Angeles in significant numbers. And in 1869, the first Southern Californian Railroad was constructed, and it connected downtown LA with San Pedro Bay, 21 miles away. In 1870, whites outnumbered Hispanics and Native Americans for the first time in Los Angeles, but that was to be short-lived. And then in 1871, the first rail link established Los Angeles and San Francisco. In 1873, the first seedless navel orange was introduced to California from Brazil. Further to that, in 1877, thanks to these new refrigerated boxcar technology, Californian oranges started becoming a sensation in places like St. Louis, and agriculture began to replace the mainstay of the local economy. And in the 1880s, citrus, wine grapes, and other fruits and vegetables also started being grown in Los Angeles area. The present-day Beverly Hills was largely bean fields, and Hollywood was actually fig orchards.
I've been bullied by my dear, wonderful niece Rowena to try and tell you something about my memories as a little child and about Los Angeles when it was a charming, beautiful little city, quiet, green hills, beautiful orchards of walnuts, oranges, and olives.
In 1880, the first Chinatown was established, centered on Alameda and Macy Streets, now Cesar Chavez Avenue, and today the area is the site of the Union Station. In 1881, the Los Angeles Times debuted as the Los Angeles Daily Times, and the Times would later go on to be one of the most distinguished daily newspapers in all of the USA. And by the latter half of the 20th century, it had won 45 Pulitzer Prizes. And then in 1881, there was more rail action. The Southern Pacific Railroad was linking Los Angeles directly with the eastern United States for the very first time. And in 1885, the Santa Fe Railroad opened a second line linking Los Angeles with the rest of the nation. In 1886, Harvey Henderson Wilcox purchased 160 acres of land west of Cahuenga Pass, and he planned a residential community. He named it Hollywood, after the estate of an acquaintance of his wife, Dida. In 1886, the price of a train ticket between Kansas and Los Angeles falls to $1, prompting another population boom of people flooding into the Los Angeles area. And in 1890, the Los Angeles population reached a record 50,000 people. In 1892, there was another discovery, and this time it was oil. Edward Doheny discovered his oil at Greasy Gulch near Westlake Park, and soon oil is being discovered all over the Los Angeles area. By 1897, 500 oil wells are operating within Los Angeles. And in 1897, the first automobile took to the streets of Los Angeles. Unlike a lot of cities around the world that grew organically, spreading out as the population did, Los Angeles had numerous influences that shaped certain districts, some faster and some slower than others. And out of the 1800s, we now enter the 1900s. And I guess this was the time for Hollywood. Up to the 20th century, a majority of families in LA were Native American, African, and European. The 1900s, however, attracted more people from abroad to settle in Los Angeles. There was also an influx of Japanese and Mexicans in Southern California, and during World War I, a number of more African Americans also started settling there. In 1911, the first Hollywood production company, Nesta Film Company, opened in an abandoned tavern, and soon there were signs being erected. No dogs, no actors. And it was in 1913 that a real landmark event happened. It was Cecil B. DeMille. He shot the first Hollywood movie called Squaw Man.
Wait a minute, baby. No Jane runs out on Hawkins. Least of all a squaw. You're wrong, Cash. Shut up.
In 1915, Carl Lammey opened Universal Picture Company, the world's largest motion picture production company and facility near Cahuenga Pass. And he was charging the public 25 cents to watch films being shot on location, and even included a box lunch. And then in 1918, brothers Sam, Jack, Harry, and Albert Warner, immigrants from Poland via Pennsylvania, opened the now legendary Warner Brothers Studios on Sunset Boulevard. And as you know, it would wind up one of the world's most famous movie studios, producing everything from Harry Potter to the Batman series. The movie business was on a roll. In 1923, originally created as an advertisement for a local real estate development company called Hollywoodland, the Hollywood sign is built and erected, which has now become a world-famous international icon representing LA, the movie business, Hollywood, and all the dreams that come with it. By 1939, the population of Los Angeles had reached an astounding 1.5 million people. And by this time, a number of other famous landmarks were starting to be constructed, as well as Hollywood, the Biltmore Hotel, City Hall, Union Station, and the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, to add on to LA's growing reputation of glamour and sparkle. But the 1900s were not all rainbows and puppy dogs for Los Angeles. The 1930s also brought about the Great Depression and rolled right into World War II. And many Japanese residents of Los Angeles were interned. And in 1943, there was the famous Zoot Suit riots, which also threw the city into turmoil. Nonetheless, through all the pandemonium, Los Angeles remained true to its nickname as the City of Angels, Not only did the city grow stronger with each challenge, but communities became interconnected further as they were becoming more diverse. And more diverse groups from all around the world continued to settle into the city, and LA was flourishing. In 1900, early Japanese immigrants arrived. By 1906, the first fossils were excavated from the Brea Tar Pits. In 1907, the Southwest Museum of the American Indian opened, and today it has one of the most important collections of Native American art and artifacts in the entire United States, covering 2,000 years of history. In 1910, Los Angeles' population was 319,000, 17th in the nation. 1910, D.W. Griffith becomes the first director to shoot a film in Los Angeles, and his acting company included Lionel Barrymore, Lillian Gish, and Mary Pickford, all stars of the silent screen. In 1913, the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles opened, and it remains the largest museum of its kind in the Western United States. In 1919, Musso and Frank's Grill opens in Los Angeles and becomes a favorite for the Hollywood Golden Age celebrities, and also Quentin Tarantino of the modern era. In 1919, United Artists is founded by Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and W.D. Griffith. In 1920, 80% of the entire world's films are now shot in California. In 1921, aviatrix Amelia Earhart begins her aeronautic career with flying lessons in Los Angeles. In 1923, a young cartoonist arrives in Los Angeles with $40 in his pocket. He was to be Walt Disney. In 1923, Bel Air becomes a not quite gated community in the foothills of Santa Monica, and it has been populated by movers and shakers ever since, and has become part of the centerpiece of some of the highest concentration of real estate wealth in the entire world. In 1924, the Mulholland Highway, now Mulholland Drive, opens on the ridgeline of Santa Monica Mountains and the Hollywood Hills. It remains, and I've done it recently, one of America's most spectacular drives, bisecting a major urban area along a mountainous path. And to the left and to the right, there's Marlon Brando's house, Jack Nicholson's house, and with some spectacular views of the San Fernando Valley. In 1925, Fox Film Corporation and 20th Century Pictures merge to form 20th Century Fox. And the next year, the studio acquires 300 acres of open land west of Beverly Hills for their production facilities. Technology advancing in 1927, talkies arrive with the first feature-length talking picture, The Jazz Singer, starring Al Jolson. And Fox Movietone News, which will be regular features in cinemas until 1963.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you, you ain't heard nothing.
In 1927, Grauman's Chinese Theatre opens. Now the TCL Chinese Theatre, or the IMAX Theatre, if you will. And over the years, impresario Sid Grauman and his successors will invite dozens of top stars to leave their handprints and footprints in the freshly poured cement out the front. In 1927 was the establishment of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the Academy in other words, with actor Douglas Fairbanks as president. Oscar Muniz have been thanking the Academy ever since. And in 1928, that guy, the cartoonist, Walt Disney, finds his very first success with the release of an animated talking picture, Steamboat Willie, starring a mouse called Mickey. In 1930, Los Angeles International Airport, or LAX, opens, and it's the fourth busiest airport in the world. LAX offers more than 700 daily non-stop flights to 100 domestic cities and over 1,300 weekly non-stop flights to dozens of cities around the world. In 1932, the games of the 10th Olympiad, 10th Street is renamed Olympic Boulevard. And in 1933, the first publication of an African-American newspaper, the Los Angeles Sentinel, is founded. In 1935, the Griffith Observatory opens in Griffith Park, and from its perch on a promontory, one can see both the skies and the city below. In 1939, Union Station opens in downtown Los Angeles, and its aesthetic combines the styles of Mission, Spanish colonial, and streamlined modern motifs to dramatic effect. And to make way for the Union Station, Chinatown is moved from its present location at the former Little Italy. In 1939, Raymond Chandler publishes the first of his novels, The Big Sleep. It would be the first detective novel set in Los Angeles. And in 1939 also, MGM Studios takes viewers over the rainbow with the breakthrough movie, The Wizard of Oz, the much-loved Wizard of Oz. In 1939, Pink's Hot Dogs is founded by Paul and Betty Pink as a pushcart near the corner of La Brea and Melrose. In 1942, Los Angeles gives the world's first parking meter. And in 1948, the first In-N-Out burger opens in Baldwin Park. The population is now almost 2 million people, surpassing Detroit as the fourth most populous in the entire United States. In 1950, Sunset Boulevard is released and instantly becomes one of the most iconic films ever released on Hollywood. 1954, oil magnate John Paul Getty opens his museum of his collections to the public in the Pacific Palisades. His Getty Center, perched atop Brentwood, along with the original museum in the Palisades, would collectively later become one of the richest museums in the entire world. In 1954, Simon Rodeo completes the Watts Towers. In 1955, Walt Disney moves to Los Angeles' ritzy Bel Air district and proclaims his new Disneyland park in Anaheim as the happiest kingdom of them all. In 1956, the Capitol Records building is built in Hollywood, distinctly shaped like a stack of 45 RPM records, and later becomes the world's first circular office tower and an emblematic symbol to the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. In 1959, Los Angeles-based toy company Mattel debuts Barbie on March the 9th, and that makes her a Pisces. In 1960, the Hollywood Walk of Fame is launched, dedicated with the star, the very first one, to Joanne Woodward, is embedded into the sidewalk. In 1961, the Space Age theme building, a prototypical example of Googie architecture of the future influenced by cars and jets, opens as a centerpiece at the LA International Airport. You'll know it, you've seen it in films like Men in Black. Even though it was built in 1961, it still looks way futuristic, even in the 2000s. It's said the building was actually influenced by the cartoon series The Jetsons, but it may have been the other way around. In 1961, the Chouinard Art Institute and the Los Angeles Conservatory of Music formed the California Institute of the Arts, and the first degree granting school for visual and performing arts in the entire United States. And CalArts alumni are many. They include director Tim Burton, Sofia Coppola, Pixar chief John Lasseter, actors Don Cheadle, Ed Harris, David Hasselhoff. In 1964, the Whiskey A Go-Go opens on the Sunset Strip. It will host musical acts including The Doors, Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Talking Heads, Oasis, Nirvana, and Soundgarden. It was a rite of passage to the next big thing that was going to break. Everybody has played there. In 1965, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art opened. Today, the LACMA is the largest museum in the Western United States. And it's along Wilshire Boulevard's Miracle Mile. In 1977, the California American Museum is founded, the African American Museum of Art, History and Culture, fully supported by a state. The CAAM began formal operations in 1981 and moved to its permanent home at Exposition Park in 1984. The new facility's inaugural exhibition was the Black Olympians, 1904 to 1984, to coincide with the '84 Summer Olympic Games. In 1977, Star Wars opened on the 25th of May and breaks all box office records. Today, May the 4th, remains Star Wars Day. And in 1984, Los Angeles becomes the only US city to host the Summer Olympic Games twice. In 1987, James McElroy, The Black Dahlia is published, the first of a series of LA novels, which also included LA Confidential. And now that brings me to the present day. Los Angeles is a booming hub of culture that spans over 465 square miles, over 7,366 miles of roads and streets, and a vast infrastructure of homes, publicly owned buildings, and one of the world's biggest harbours. Millions of people from around the world land at LAX airport every year to see the wonders, marvels of Hollywood and all its beauty. And the city's become the setting for movies, books, television shows. But none of this would have happened if it wasn't for the varied and different ethnic communities that have brought various pictures of their culture and formed an internet community, which is now Los Angeles.